$30,000 plus merchant cash advance debt relief without any new loans and faster relief, plus stronger funding options will be revealed in this video. Hi, welcome in. This is Michael with Viral Funding Solutions. I'm a business funding expert, business loan broker expert, pre-underwriter slash underwriter who's been able to help a lot of business owners navigate through their debts, not only through merchant cash advances, MCA-like debts, other type of business debts, and helping them find the right strategic partnership and roadmap for longer term within this, as also with other services. And if you've been in a situation or you are currently now dealing with where you're stuck in this hole so deep down and you're like, how do I claw myself back up? You try to move up and down, left and right, forward, backwards, and there's just no way out of this. And as you go up and surface, the dirt just keeps rushing in at a faster rate. It's so quick that you find yourself just hurting, you're bruised up, and you're just worried about what your day to day will look like, your operations, working capital wise over 3, 6, 9, 12 plus months. You're trying to grow and expand, but you're getting these daily, weekly repayments taken out of your account. You've no longer been able to use them correctly, or this whole time you were just using them to pay off other debt, other positions over 50% or less than 50% of it, which a lot of the times normally goes to being able to use it to pay off other debt more or less there. And then thinking of ways that you can find other services. So I'm going to be going into a bit of that in this document. I'm going to be scrolling down here in just a second to go through all of it. But before that, just so you know, for full transparency, I'm very loyal. I'm a Libra, if that says anything. And I'm very calm, emotionally controlled, very loyal of a person. Again, I'm the introverted, analytical, cerebral type. So you don't have to worry with me. I'm not pushing you down the wrong direction like others would out there, overpromising and under delivering. You're unsure about what you're filling out or what the process will look like. I'll go through that in just a second. So let me scroll down here. And I made a video somewhat similar to this, and I had it open in another tab. Here, let me open it up right here and go through my documents, but I have one here with this one that I did on business debt consolidation, refinancing, and more options for business debt plus 0% interest business credit cards. I won't be going through all of those different options for like debt consolidation, refinancing, and so much. So in specific, we're going to focus on one for this one. But what I'd like you to know that if you're trying to consolidate your debt, refinance it, however you go about that, trying to take out equity from property, from commercial real estate or investment real estate that you own free and clear, or you're trying to use a credit partner or a friend who has property or these other ways, 401ks to pay off debt, your MCAs and things like that, or you can't, you're over leveraged and you're trying to find these other solutions and they don't work because you don't have enough cash flow. You're trying to go from an MCA to an online bank term loan or just a bank term loan in general, get a bank line of credit or other forms, and you're trying to get into an SBA and it's not enough because you don't have enough free operating cash flow, investment, financial cash flow in these other directions. You don't have enough debt service coverage ratio, global, personal, and business. And even when you did, or if you did, you still don't get enough, or you're like, well, I'm trying to put the pieces together so I can have something better longer term, and they don't work. Reverse debt consolidations are the last thing to focus on. And so taking on a new loan for consolidation and putting everything you have now underneath a new service or another one, it doesn't always work in your best interest. And for many people, they're strapped up in cash flows and their average daily bank balances and more. And just refinancing it is not their best direction sometimes with what they currently have and what they're trying to move into. And it's not as immediate of a fix. So back to here. And here I put some things I had on a Facebook post that I wanted to put on this document and what I shared with others. And it says here, attention business owners suffering from merchant cash advance debt or any other debt and are in need of restructuring or settling your payments. Hi, and then I put my name. Are you drowning in merchant cash advance debt or other business debt and need to consolidate or refinance right away, but you're having trouble putting all your payments under one loan or refinancing under a higher service, lowering your rates, extending the terms entirely because of current rates and your cash flow and more? And this also ties into if you have refinanced or you've taken out a new loan, you've had it mature and you finished it and you took out another new MC underneath this current provider or a new one as you move up more or less. And there's different ways about it. If you paid off 50% of it, did you refinance? And a lot of people end up doing that, not because they necessarily want to, but because they have to. And their business is in a position where it's growing at a rapid pace and they just take out more MCAs, or it's just that you're trying to pay off other debt, other MCA balances, and other things too. And as you use that, you're not doubling, tripling, quadrupling your revenue. So the merchant cash advances have a time and a place. And as I always tell people, this is how have you used your funds? What's your gross profit margins? What's your ROI from this? What are you netting from it? What implications on operational cash flow and profitability does it have short term and long term? Is it something that you can immediately pay off? Because that's what I would recommend. Even if you were given 8 months, can you use this effectively within 3 months? Pay it off in the third month, the first month, have prepayment discounts, early payment discounts, excuse me, no prepayment penalties. And if you needed to get a new one, could you and should you get another one? Or what do you need to do to prepare your profile, personal credit, business credit wise, and in other formats to get those larger types of services? And so it's not just a simple, oh, I took one of these out, I'm going to go refinance it or consolidate it underneath a business term, bank term loan or an SBA loan. A lot of people come to me with that. And especially at an SBA loan level, a lot of the lenders, and I have the best lenders that I work with in this, will want you to clear up that debt schedule of those high APR interest factor rate type of MCAs. And if you have other ones and you don't have enough cash flow, I do a cash flow analysis, profitability analysis, and more things. I do mathematical things. I'm the math-driven system type of person. So here, what if you could refinance and or consolidate, but it wasn't enough to meet your long-term needs and needed an immediate solution? As I mentioned earlier, it's not always a quick fix for many people. You have to go through a different thing to do. The best option is not a reverse debt consolidation. You give you a new loan and then you have an extra payment to make after everything else has matured, and then you still have somewhat of a large enough payment, and you don't want to put yourself in that financial strain. And if you don't know what it'll be like day to day, your operations, the management of the business is already bad, or it's not where it needs to be, you're losing money, sales, revenue, all this other stuff, it becomes very, very troublesome and very quickly. I've seen it in a lot of businesses. Having an attorney-led debt restructuring team, and I'm going to put this in bold. This has been and is one of the greatest solutions right now, and I'm going to get into why that is in a moment. So an attorney-led debt restructuring team, the best that is out there, with decades of experience to help you renegotiate your existing creditor note or notes, however many there are, and have a customized plan to help you move forward confidently and without the stress, not only in your business, but also in your personal life. As I help people, I care about you as in the character. I look for people with the characteristic traits, or if you have some form of an ego, you're arrogant, ignorant, I always say, let's leave that out the door. I don't want that affecting myself and or my team. And so it's okay. It's just let's not have that friction and resistance. I normally or I never do have that with people. It's always from the other side. And I just want you to know that you don't have to continue going down this path because of the stress of your business. And it's not all the time your fault. There are economic factors in play, supply chain issues, you having to relieve people for specific operations of the business. So there's never a clash of heads with me ever. If you ask the people that I've worked with, help them get funding, and even when they couldn't get funding, it's just the friction comes in when there's too much of the character just coming in, and now it's like, oh, so we kind of want to leave that out the door and work it out that way. So you have an attorney-led debt restructuring team, the best with decades of experience to help you navigate through this. People on average get between 40% to 75% on average of their debt payments lowered in days without any new loan. So a debt restructuring between 40 to 75%, even more than that, 80% more or less, has happened, and what I've seen and I've helped out people with. And this is a great solution. So I'll continue to go through this here. You don't want to get yourself into these problems, or if you already have, it's time to change things up, even with defaults and things like that. Can we consider, we can look at things. But if you're going through this right now and those pains of just growing through and figuring out like what is your next move, what should I do, who should I get help from? It's not always what I always tell people, coming back to the character, it's not normally the business Think about like a Walmart or an Amazon. Yes, you understand the business and the business brand, but also the person and the personal brand and the person who drives those businesses behind it. And that's who you stick with. And so I always tell a business owner, as well as I have the best lenders, and most of the time would be offers that are out there, the majority, it's not always about that. It's about the person. And so why people sit with me, like I said again, I'm very loyal, very transparent, honest. I give people the benefit of the doubt, and I don't pressure anybody. I went to school myself. I studied chemical engineering. Before that, I did sociology, and I was a Division One soccer player for a little bit. Then I transitioned to chemical engineering courses, and then I had to make a big decision. So after being in that for some time, I wanted to start a business, so I went into the business side of schooling, and then I went deeper into that as I had already satisfied other requirements before. And then thereafter, everything wasn't as linear. I have worked in construction, manufacturing, in the field positions even before that. And then I worked in warehousing. I was a ramp agent at some point in my younger 20s. And then later on, getting into a financial logistics position with a huge contracting company servicing HP. Sorry, I was about to say birth there, but it wasn't really one. And so I was working for a huge contracting company servicing HP and Peace Health for a financial logistics company. And the company ended up going down under. I was underpaid, undervalued immensely. And I only stuck into it because of stability and for other reasons. I thought I would be able to grow. The person in front of me would retire eventually, and these things happening. I had to go back on unemployment benefits, food stamp cards. Just imagine introverted me. I couldn't even make eye contact with the lady or the gentleman at the register to pay with my EBT card. And just walking out of there with my bags was a huge relief. But then I thought I got to do this again next month or next week or two. And so I didn't have to be necessarily in that position for as long, but I didn't want to just take on another job, another career, and go down this 40-hour plus work week and work for somebody else. And so in that position before I went down under, luckily I was in contact with a friend of mine and he shared with me what digital marketing was, and I understood the concepts of it. So at that time, I built a digital marketing agency, lead generation business. I still have those that have been outsourced. I have an affiliate marketing business in the health space, helping people with their back pain, vitamins and supplements that I still have, other verticals in the affiliate marketing space. I did an e-commerce setup with my health thing for a bit, then I went back because of what I saw and the conversions and things like that that were working just as fine. And then have other ventures. This has been my primary focus, though, as a business funding expert, and having received funding from my businesses, MCAs in the past. Not necessarily do I need to get them now, but business credit cards I rely on a lot more. Personal credit, business credit cards more so than anything, and understanding government assistance and these other formats and helping you navigate. And I see the difference you make in your clientele and your customers. And that's what I've enjoyed, and seeing that difference you make in your own business, that it helps you not only in your wealth, but in your health and your relationships matters a lot to me, but also what effect it has to your own customer or customers and the happiness from them. And I see that joy from, and it's a great thing to understand. And I wanted to make an indirect or direct impact through you with the economy, and you drive the economy with your small business and business in general. And there's more to it too, having the right mission, vision, and values that have aligned with me, being very punctual and disciplined. So you don't want to get yourself into these problems, or if you have, it's time to change things up, covering things up with more advances to pay other advances. If this is what you're currently going through, which a lot of us have gone through in the past or are going through, you don't want to keep or fall behind on your payments and eventually default. Even if you've defaulted, we'll consider things, we'll look at things. But if you're in a situation where you're saying, hey, I just will declare bankruptcy instead and not have to pay a debt, you have to be cautious of that. That's not always in your best interest to start all over, because if you try to go get now a bank term loan or an SBA loan, they don't want to see any bankruptcies within the last 4 or 5 plus years, and sometimes more. And those things can stay on your report for time, 7 plus, 10 plus years. And so any kind of bankruptcy, especially when it comes to creative credit back solutions, no bankruptcy at all showing on your report. So be cautious, whether it is on the personal side, on the business side. We can get into the chapters on those, but we won't do so. And being able to declare bankruptcy for specific credit cards and them coming after you to pay that debt. And if not, what are other ways and other repercussions, or starting from scratch again, and other things that happen there in the process, depending on a case by case basis. You don't want to file bankruptcy due to your financial struggles. A lot of people come to me and go, can't I just file bankruptcy? And a lot of people have assets and they go, well, it's not within the country. So if I put this underneath a different jurisdiction, international, There's so many different things, and you just have to be cautious. You don't want to continue to have your cash flow restricted, not only within cash flow, but anything else you're generating. You're bringing in more people, you have set expectations for them that you can't meet, and you have to relieve people as fast as you bring them in, and you have a quick churn. Your average order value goes down. Average customer lifetime value of a customer, you're not able to help repeating clients within your business. There's so much more you need to look at if you're restricted in cash flow and trying to generate enough revenue, and covering that up with more sales isn't necessarily the solution and the gap, because if you're withdrawing more than what comes in, your operational expenses, other expenses of your business are just too high. The difference, it really won't equate. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So optimizing for cash flow right now and profitability is huge in a business. And I know how to read financial statements, help people improve their cash flow, profitability, EBITDA, and in many other ways. You don't want your personal bills to keep mounting up only to cause you more financial, mental, physical, and spiritual stress. That's a huge concern for me. It's one thing, the business, but now it's affecting you in your personal life, your spouse, your children. You can't even go to an event, their choir event. You're missing something else that they have, a soccer game. Can't even go to a practice just to drop them off, let alone pick them up. Basketball game, all these other things that affect you. You just want to get in your cocoon and hide in there and be in your own room, lights off, or if it's even light outside, you just want to cover yourself in the blanket. You don't want to be a part of any of that, and it becomes a lot of trouble to your health and a lot of other concerns. And before I go any further, I do want to show you, let me see if it's in this one. Yeah. So you can get started, by the way. It'll be down below here. It'll look something like this, more or less. It might change over time. You can watch the video there where I go a little bit into the debt restructuring too. And then what is it? You can reframe your mind a little bit or refresh it. In other words, you are eligible if, and we'll go into some of those details here, the steps to it, get started there. You can learn a little bit more about me. I may have more content to that down below. And if you were to click here, it'll bring you through a form and you can fill out something simple. It might be longer, more or less. But here you can fill out some simple details. It might be a longer format too. I sometimes have a longer one because at the same time, if you're new to this, is you can fill out a debt restructuring form, and then there will be a second part where you can fill out details for new funding. So if you want to get new funding, it'll ask you things for amounts of lowest monthly revenue in the last 90 days, average monthly revenue, personal business credit score. Do you have this 670 on all three consumer credit bureaus? And I'm not a creditor. This is not an application. This is a pre-qualification. This is more of a pre-questionnaire or a questionnaire form, you could say. And I have what's called a questionnaire form right here in general that I have people fill out. So it'll look like that more or less. So if you can select from one of these two, this will be more for a traditional funding means with private lenders, and if we gotta have to go to banks and what specific capacity to do that. But there are some of the results that have been generated. I just put a handful of them there, but I've generated much more than that. And up here, you can select from one of the two, and you will get a free 6-step pre-approval lending checklist. So startup, click there, non-startup, click here, and it could look different over time. But this is what I mean by the form being a little bit longer. This one is because of funding. And so this is what it could look like also on the other one. But you'd like to fill that out as good as you can. And I know how to pre-screen, pre-underwrite, /underwrite files, even without looking at documents. I know based on credit, cash flow, collateral, and equity, liquidity, and other forms, whether this would make sense or not. So please answer those to your best ability. It'll pay off. Trust me, it can be done in less than a minute. For the most part, if you have it, give me some rough estimates, but try to be as accurate as you can. And then there'll be a thank you page video kind of walking you through my processes. And then I can give you a very highly personalized and customized email, even with a PDF response showing you your best funding option and options, whether you can or can't qualify. You will have no doubt. You can reuse that, bookmark that, take that PDF, reuse it over and over. There could be ballpark numbers based on your file, as I know how to pre-underwrite /underwrite. And so you'll be able to see that, navigate. I'll show you a couple of options, whether they're startup or non-startup options, underneath credit, cash flow, collateral, other forms, and I'll show you which one's best. I'll position it that way. I'll show you all the details that you need to know about documents, application, how to get started from there too, and what would need to be submitted, how it needs to be submitted and looked at. And you'll be given information that is not even publicly released. I'm in the trenches with the lenders, the full-time underwriters, and I can be a full-time underwriter myself, but for flexibility on this side and the opportunity cost, it makes a lot more sense. And then I have other businesses. But if I had to focus 100% of my time and it was only this industry, probably would just be underwriting and conducting a merchant call. Or if it's not a merchant call with 8-tier lenders, just a merchant review, and they go passed on through the next part of the process. And so here, you don't want to go through that. Here's a bit of what's required to take the next step or steps. No minimum FICO is necessary, which is great. When you go and try to do a consolidation, a refinance, and another means, you'll be required, if you're trying to move up another service, to have a 660 credit score. 675 is a basis, or 680. And other ones would want 700 and above when you go to banks, 8-tier banks. And they're still willing to work with you if you have lower credit, but they're going to factor in also heavy the business credit score. If not the business credit score, then it depends on the bank, depends on the file, the strength of the relationship, the strength of the cash flow, projection of cash flow in some cases. But and those are going to require you to supply collateral and have enough 85%, 95% plus collateral coverage. And yes, they'll probably give you more leeway because you have stronger average daily bank balances. They'll be willing to work with you in other formats, but that's not always an immediate solution, or you can't always do that. When you go online, when you try to do an online bank term loan or bank term loan lenders with the ones that I have, and I have plenty of them, and for your right business and your scenario and your use of funds, it has to make sense. And in the market right now, and as that changes, but no minimum FICO. You don't have to take this to an SBA and say, well, I don't have the credit, I have the FICO SPSS business like a credit score. My paydex score here is there. This is what I have on Equifax, Experian, DNB, the small business financial exchange, PayNet, all these other things that amount. You can't do that, or you can, but you just don't want to supply too much documentation. That's another thing. When you go to some of those, or a majority of them, they're going to be high doc, medium to high documentation. And if you don't have your personal tax returns, your business tax returns, you filed an extension for, you can't get that as quickly. You don't have your profit and loss, balance sheets, all this other stuff. You don't have enough cash flow, profitability. Like those are more concerns. And the time you want to get this done too is immediate that you're looking for, excuse me, as an alternative. No collateral is required, which is great. You don't have to worry about putting up your personal asset or assets, blanket liens on, or a full collateral coverage on those business assets or commercial properties at stake, your equipment now, and things you're trying to do, and UCC filings, and there's so many other things. No, so the minimum here, and why I said 30,000 and above earlier, is it has to be at least a minimum of 30,000 plus an MCA, merchant cash advance, or MCA like that, hybrid cash advances, all type of revenue coming into the business. It's not just based and predicated on credit card and debit card statements, but any type of revenue and sales you're generating in the business and how you're depositing that is very important. The cash flow and how money's moving in and moving out, the flow between accounts, if there are multiple ones, banking institutions. And when people ask me a lot of the time, like, why does that matter? It matters because we need to know if this is verifiable income, if this is legit business income, has this been moved from somebody else, from vendor suppliers, how's the money being collected, moved, transferred, wire transferred, ACH, electronic, all these other things. But that's a whole other topic for another time. But a minimum of 30,000 plus an MCA or MCA like that to be restructured. And that's very good because the ROI potential on all parties, as well as the implications and what can be restructured or settled, has to make most sense. And in other cases too. If you have other business debt like credit cards, bank loans, tax liabilities, then the total of debt that would be needed is 1 million or more for us to be able to restructure it. And that's what you see commonly across the whole board. It's not just here. And if it is at 1 million, that's because we're trying to make sure that we can restructure it appropriately with other contracts that are out there, other obligations you need to meet, other filings. This needs to lawfully make sure it's done correctly. Attorney led, everything's looked at paperwork wise, everything looks cleared. And for it to make sense ROI for all parties, of course, that million and above is there, and for many other reasons. So before it gets too out of hand, or it already has, okay, you should check out how to do it correctly. And if you need help with restructuring your debt, this is a one from the post again, but you can go through asset comments, restructure, or similar. But this was applying to a Facebook post. And so what you'd like to do is go through this over here and fill out the debt restructuring form and go through that, and you'll get some extra material as well along the way. Or if that change, you'll see that differently. Readable version, there might be one. This might be taking off, but you can also read it as you go, as you're hearing and listening to that. So back to this. This way, you can free up more cash flow and have enough working capital to meet your short and long-term obligations, as well as be able to grow and expand. And for many other reasons too, not just those, uh, mutually or exclusively. P.S. If you need to lower your personal credit utilization and more to get certain cards and services, the debt restructure program is a great way to do this, and to do much more with your credit and certain loan funding programs, as I said a little bit earlier about some of them. But it is great because if you're trying to get business credit cards and you've overextended your usage on personal credit and you can't pay down that to lower your utilization and to bring up your credit score and lower your balances and lower your balances of utilization on each of the revolving accounts. There's a lot of things you can do with restructuring that'll have enough cash flow, you generate enough money from your business to then pay that card or cards down, those accounts, alleviate that stress, have enough that's not revolving over another month, that you can't pay down and pay it off as fast as you used to, or that you're trying to. And it'll bring you up more breathing room. And then if you try to go get business credit cards, we can use that personal credit now from whichever bureau that that bank or that location will pull from and do it accurately. So a lot of people come to me with that, and they just can't find the mean right now to pay off credit cards and do this. And if they had a restructuring program, and if they didn't have to use potentially a personal loan, if they had enough credit to do that, to pay that down or pay enough of it down, a merchant cash advance, these are great solutions. And a lot of people will also try to use a personal loan to pay down their balances on their cash advance, whether it's over 50% more or less, or completely rid of it, and even the other way around, with MCA to personal loans and things like that. But yeah, there are many other formats, but this is a great way to get into it. And then I said talk soon there. So here's just a little bit about what I already went through, but debt restructuring option, as I covered already. A debt restructuring, I have a debt restructuring and settlement team that works with merchant cash advances. All situations are unique, but you may be able to get a customizable plan where reasonably expected to see payments drop between an average of 40 to 75% plus, as mentioned earlier. To give you an idea of what can be done, if anything, I will need you to fill out a debt restructuring application and business debt schedule, which I would attach to this email, or I'll send it to you in time. Fill out the form right here first, as I will then evaluate and look at things based on the details. And the information can look a little bit less on this form, more or less. I can have some extra additional details to fill out. And then I'll go through it, I'll analyze and I'll evaluate. And then I'll get back to you with an email response, and I'll send you the documentation, I'll send you the application and a little bit more information if something has changed, or additional information specific to your scenario and additional stuff that you need to know. To be sure, in almost all instances, we can reduce short-term repayments and get the face value if the MCA debt reduced by more than 25% on average net of all fees. We have over 90% of an approval rate. We also need your contracts you sign usually via DocuSign. They have legalese in them that our legal team will use to reverse engineer and escape hatch for you potentially. Every time they work 100% and they are successful if you do what you are supposed to do. So when many people come to me and go, but this, that, then it's like you're trying to cover another problem that can't get fixed on its own. You'll have to restructure to fix that. Like when people come to me, whether it's in the health, e-commerce, retail, it's many different industries that'll come to me. And I understand the operations of many, many businesses. And I go, well, if you're tied to one platform, like if you're in e-commerce, you're tied everything to one platform, your marketing, everything that you have, your processor included, and much more, it's hard to protect your revenue in many cases. And so those MCA loans become very troublesome, and you can't find enough relief. You can't pay them off as fast as you wanted to. You don't have enough to pay that down, enough cash flow. For other businesses too, you have problems that you're running into, and everything is tied to one place. You don't have other third parties to help you. You try to do it on your own. It's not efficient enough. You don't get enough of it removed, and you don't have that stronger partnership that you would have had if you would have done it this way. There are many other scenarios for different businesses that I can go into even deeper, but for time, we'll continue here. This can be used for, with debt restructuring, extending your repayment period. You're reducing, having a reduction of your balance, however much that is between the amounts, reducing the interest rate that you have, changing what is considered a past due status to a current one by combining the balances by combining that balance. There's the introverted me in my words. So no minimum FICO, as I mentioned. I went through a few of the things: the total MCA debt amount needed, or MCA-like debt, other factored loan products like Bluevine, OnDeck, Fundbox, Headway, etc. I can name a lot of merchant cash advance companies too. I'm not going to get into all of that, but like OnDeck, you have Capitus, you have so many of them. I can go into Box. I haven't even touched upon. There's so many of them that I'm not even partnered with directly, and then also indirectly that would make most sense for you to do those in different scenarios, or you have to come back to that temporarily until you improve your credit in another means. So if you have other business debt like credit cards, as I mentioned, what it would need to be like. Sometimes we can include business credit card debt into the MCA restructure, but that will negatively impact your credit. If you are in pain, though, you shouldn't care about it. And the thing, too, when it comes to the other type of debt at the 1 million mark, you have to be in enough hurt. If it's like a payment issue, if you're going through problems where you just can't meet your payments, you're behind on a couple, or you feel like you're going to be behind on a couple of them, that's where you need to kind of look at it and think, is this something that has gone on at a hand? Can I take care of it earlier? Should I have taken care of it earlier? So it could be more of a lack of revenue. It could be lack of sales problems, not really a debt problem. So that's something that also needs to be considered. And if it isn't enough, then it won't make most sense. And if you're not hurt at that stage, you're not going onward and upwards and moving up, and have that breathing room enough of it, it can be quite of a problem. So I was looking through a few of my notes, making sure I didn't miss anything. So no negative impact to your personal or business credit in many scenarios. That's in many. No upfront out-of-pocket fees, which is great. Quick and easy application process for you. It's a customized offer, term sheet, closing call within 24 hours most of the time. So we'll go through things, we'll analyze on our back end, and then also you'll be set up with one of our principals on a phone call. And just kind of going over the situation a little bit more in detail, kind of just going over the expectations a little bit. That's very normal in what happens. And then after that, if it all looks good, we can move forward with things. It makes sense. Then there will be a payment analyst situation that will go over things. And everything on our back end, we know about what's going on, how it's being restructured, the numbers, this and that. And if this or if that doesn't make sense, but a lot of the times it makes sense. You're just trying not to like think about it that way, or sometimes you're like, well, this and that in this scenario. But this is the best for the majority of people out there to do. And it's very respectful and respectable to go through the source. So that'll be what happens. And then from there, it can be like an e-sign. And then there you go on through that process. And we'll go through that in a little bit more in this part about the ongoing part. Here's the other debt. We can restructure, determine on a case-by-case basis. Government loans, vendor debt, supplier debt, commercial real estate debt, term loans, lines of credits or a line of credit, all terms of tax debt, tax liabilities, etc. Debt from business ventures, business credit cards or credit card, but multiple is better. The amount, of course, needs to make sense. Bank debt, credit union business debt. A lot of people will be doing that since a lot of people are turning to credit unions in this market and moving forward a lot. Non-bank business debt, equipment loans, any unsecured business debt, as well as any secured business debt. Excuse me. So it could look like this. This is just a quick example. I didn't go through. I just put some rough numbers. I mean, when the file comes in, the numbers are going to be more accurate, of course. It's just kind of just threw some numbers in there. But the total debt enrolled into the program is about $328,624. Let's say that's the example, how much debt you have and how much debt we were able to work with, and etc. Payment terms, 35 weekly payments. Let's just say that. Payment amount, $6,522.70. That's what you're going to have to owe. Okay, good. Restructured your other debt, lowered it. There you go. First payment scheduled for, there could be one. Could be scheduled 10 days after this has been given to you. So it could be within that time, 5 to 10 days, more or less than that in your expected payment. So it gives you that breathing room, which is great. Debt balance savings, let's say $102,830.62. If you were to able to save over 100,000, heck, save over 40, 50, 20, 30,000, would that make a major difference for you? Of course, for many business owners, it would immediately. It would relieve them. They would have enough operating cash flow, enough to invest. They have enough for their operational expenses to cover and their lease agreements and all this other stuff. And if they have multiple insurances, it adds up really quickly. And so think about a lot of that. And then your payroll percentage, cost of goods sold, cost of sales, excuse me, fixed and variable costs within that. A lot of changes that happen in the business, even if it's more so if it's seasonal too. So the documents that are needed, a debt restructuring application, a debt restructuring business debt schedule. And it's not going to look like this, but I'll show you an example. When I send it to you, I'll send it to you the way it's supposed to look, but the fields could look like this more or less. So you have from Here, the lender, the original amount, original date, all the way down to prepaid penalty, secured, and a few more things that total, sign, print, and then date. And there could be additional fields and things that are added in words. You'll also need to provide an income projection form on what would you do in the next 3 months? What would you do with your current revenue now? What do you have? What would be looking like in the next 2 months, 3 months, etc. Because we want to make sure you're in the best position. Can we potentially get you more funding if your revenue were to increase to this, or you're going to have enough of a margin here? Okay, that's going to make sense. But first, let's fix this. Let's fix that. Or if we don't have to, okay. I want to make sure, as well as with the team, that you are in the best of hands financially. So we're not going to just bet on clearing this debt and thinking in the next 2 months you're going to take on another merchant cash advance, another couple, or you're going to take on a home mortgage or this, and it's going to add a lot more financial strain. So you just have to be cautious in how do you mitigate those risks. So income projection form, copy of all signed funding contracts that you are looking to restructure. If you don't have them handy in a desktop folder, simply search your email using each funder's name and hit enter. You can also use search using the word DocuSign without the quote marks, and everything you sign from DocuSign will and should populate. If it's in other locations, it should populate there. Important, if you can't locate the contracts, and do not, I put this in red here, this is for it to work out for you. And this is standard. Do not call your MCA companies to request duplicates. The customer service personnel have their antennae up and are specially trained for their clients calling for their contracts. They recognize this action as a precursor to a DR, debt restructure. That's what they're going to signal it as a flag, or some other legal activity, and then you could be at fault. They're going to have their red flag up. They already have a strike. They don't want you to be in, you don't want to go into data merge and all these other things. They recognize this as that or some other legal activity. You have the element of surprise working in your favor. Don't lose it unnecessarily by calling your MCA company. We can't get around them not having the contract if we have to. So there are other forms and ways about it. Business bank statements, most recent month, and month to date, copy of your front and back of your valid driver's license. And I can collect a lot of this from email, and I'll put it into a drive. I'll analyze it. I'll look it over, make sure it all is there for one, all fields are, but also analyze the debt schedule and other forms that I'd look at, revenue, sales, all this other part, deposits, and so much more. Once these DR, which is short for debt restructure items, are received, we will review the file and get back to you fast to let you know what the next step is to keep this moving forward, as we want to help alleviate your financial pain as quickly as possible, and in many other forms, your health, your relationships on the personal side. Remember, over 90% of these files get approved. If you ever need this service, please reply back to this email. That was in a different place, but you can go through this questionnaire form over here to fill out and go through these details. And if it looks different, you'll see that in time. And if you're already in my email list, or if you already are there, we've been communicating via email or in other formats, then I can share that with you already, and we'll go from there. So here I just put underneath like business debt consolidation, refinance. Of course, you can get debt relief from them. And I said a little bit about this earlier. I'm going to end up here in the next 2 to 3 minutes. But taking on a new loan to replace your existing debt and moving into one loan, you're usually not usually getting rid of it like most people think, but moving it over a new location place. Use bank term loans, SBA loans for a lot of that. That's what people end up doing. But if you're not in a position to do that credit-wise and in other forms, cash flow, et cetera, profitability in other ways, it's hard. Debt refinancing for a better interest rate, consolidation equal putting multiple loans together as one. Debt settlement, negotiation with creditors to sort out paying less than what you currently owe on your own, sort out to work with a debt professional and team to negotiate on your behalf, which is usually the best scenario. And be cautious too when you're consolidating like personal stuff, because if an account closes or for other things that the amount that was settled for less than what was originally owed, things could show off as a charge off, and that can show on your report for 7+ years, and it's hard to get removed just as quickly as you can. And so just be cautious of all these things, making sure you're not getting yourself into fraud issues, whether it was caused by you or not. It can still be looked at the same by many. And there are cases to be made where we'll look at it and see what exactly happened and how quickly can this move on from, and what, if anything, needs to be paid off or paid down, and all these other cases. Reverse debt consolidation would be the last thing. Like I said, I'm not going to get into all the details here, but reverse, I guess I'll get into it. Provide will provide you with a business, reverse consolidation. Start from the beginning. I started at the provide part and I got kind of sidetracked. A reverse consolidation means that a reverse consolidation funder will provide you in your business with a loan in exchange for taking on the daily or weekly payments from the MCA or the merchant cash advance or advances. By doing so, your business is granted an extension on your repayment term. So the business will pay back the reverse consolidation finance a portion of what a financier, a portion of what it was paying the cash advance lender, but now for a longer amount of time. By extending the loan repayment term, and reverse consolidation lender provides your business or businesses, however many, and you're dealing with problems there, with more breathing room. This is especially useful if cash flow is tight or credit sales aren't performing as well as expected in other forms of revenue that are generated by the business. By taking out a reverse consolidation, it can typically lower payments by 40 to 60%. This means that there's a high net cash within the business because of the lower payments. It's also a good way to consolidate multiple cash advances. The easiest way to think of a reverse consolidation on a merchant cash advance is that it turns the loan into a larger loan with a longer repayment period with smaller repayment amounts. So that's not what I would recommend. Obviously, if it's the last thing you can do, that's it. But if you're already over leveraged, a lot of the times they won't help you. This is a good option, but the last one I recommend is it could impact the credit. But if it's at the last resort and you really needed it to, then there it is. Benefits, there you go. Negatives, I just kind of went into that. I'm not going to get into all that. I covered that in the other video, but in a little bit more detail. So those aren't ones that I recommend. I would recommend the debt restructure. If you can't do a refinance consolidation right away, the restructure is the best solution to lower those payments. And let me see, just to make sure I didn't miss any other. Let me see my screens here. We went over that more or less. This page, form, I already had that open, and the questionnaire form. So that will conclude everything from me in this video. Look down below in the description for this information to get started with. You can go ahead and check that out and find out more about the debt restructure, and I'll share with you more information if so. But here it is again where you would like to get started. If you want the very best, an experienced staff, fast response time and time to approve, certified expertise there, character driven, which again, like I said, it matters a lot, especially to me, having worked on my personal development. I'm not a guru, but as an entrepreneur business owner, that's very important. Great reduced percentages, and the 6 fast, simple steps as I went through more or less. Payment analysis walkthrough, e-sign, step 6 done. And what we covered earlier, step 1 through 3, they're moving forward. And about us, that's there. It's your money. Go ahead and clear your debt before it's too late. A lot of people miss that opportunity too. And you find yourself in too much more financial strain, and you can't even take on more debt. And you're wondering like how you're going to keep up with new contracts. You're taking on more than you can chew. But yes, that will conclude everything in this video. If you did get value from this, please give it a thumbs up, share it with others who you feel will find value from it. It can be a complete stranger, a friend, or a family member. And if you have not subscribed yet, please go ahead and subscribe and click that bell notification icon so you do not miss any future content I will be coming out with. And also, one last thing that just came to my mind is I've already released a lot of content, one on debt consolidation and stuff like that. That doesn't work for the majority of people. It's not the best thing to do right away. But also other blended material where you're trying to move from, like I said earlier, these things to a bank term loan, an SBA loan. There are lines of credit as well. There are business credit cards at 0% interest for 6 to 18 plus months, whether it's on the business side, preferably. There's also on the personal side. Do you need to start off with secured cards if you have bad credit, or do you have to go from secured to then turn that unsecured card and then go from other institutions and go from there? So there are other formats, other types of funding programs that I'm able to work with. And that's where I want to leave it at. So all information in the description down below to get started. Appreciate you. Thank you. I never take anything for granted. I'm very appreciative and respectful of your energy and time, as I'm sure you are with mine. And as being very punctual and disciplined as I am, and the introvert that I am, I will help you and I'll have your best interest at heart. That's everything for now. Take care. Bye.